For me, ending up at seminary was a total surprise. I would never, ever have imagined that when I started my university experience. I didn't know much about seminary. I knew about schools that could take me farther in biology. I had done some work at a couple universities that seemed like they would be natural fits. So there was a path charted for me there, but it didn't feel like the path God was leading me down. I went to Calvin College, it's now university, and I came in to study biology. And I had this experience that really reminds me, Lou Smedes writes in his book, in his memoir, about his experience in an English classroom, where he says, I learned about a God I didn't know before, the likes of which I could never have known before. This God who loved beautifully crafted sentences. And I had a very similar experience in this biology classroom. I learned about a God, the likes of which I hadn't known before. A God who, yes, had a strong word for me and my salvation and my church, but a God who cared about the plants of the field, who cared about us knowing their name, knowing how to tend them, knowing how to love them. And it was then that kind of was this light bulb moment for me that the kinds of questions that I was really drawn to were the theological questions, even if they were about a biological discipline. And I kind of had to reframe my picture of self then, because I had seen myself as this kind of scientist in training. And suddenly it seemed like I might be a theologian in training. I was a real planner that liked to have my life planned and liked to have, here's what I'm going to do next, here's where that's leading, here's where that's going. Suddenly that was all thrown out the window. And my life was faithful next steps. And Calvin Seminary was the faithful next step that God opened the door to. And I really, looking back, have this, it seems like just such a wonderful gift of providence. I got so much at Calvin Seminary. I grew up in the Christian Reformed Church. I had Christian schooling. I went to Calvin University. I had this kind of Reformed sense and this kind of sense of Reformed theology, but I didn't have clear language for a lot of the concepts, and then of course I didn't have a deep dive into many of the concepts, and I got so much of that there. That's such a gift to know, very concretely to know people like, this is Herman Bavinck. He is the one that has kind of written these great ideas down. The things that grab you are deeply autobiographical. And for me, I was a teenager at the time when that WWJD trend was crazy. Everyone was wearing these bracelets. We asked the question, but that wasn't really integrated with the rest of my faith formation. As a teenager, I don't think I couldn't have articulated that disconnect, but I think I felt it a bit, that I was being told, how do we live a Christian life? We live it in gratitude by following God's commandments laid out in the law. And then kind of almost on the side, I was being told to ask, what would Jesus do? And the two didn't fit together. And suddenly, now I'm a seminarian, I'm a research assistant for this, really influential professor, and I'm seeing that someone says they do fit together. And all of a sudden, I'm kind of transported back to my teenage self and able to say, this is how this question fits. This question might not be phrased the best. And in Bavinck, I found someone that said, actually, that kind of piety, that kind of looking to Jesus as an exemplar is right in a particular way. Because who is Jesus? He is the living law. And that kind of brought together a huge amount of my kind of childhood faith formation experiences, and I was hooked. I mean, Bavinck, that kind of piece really fit in with my autobiographical faith journey, and that was one of those, like, this is the idea I can't let go of. And I mean, that's what a PhD turns into, right? You have an idea that you can't let go of, and you just need to keep studying it. They often say, when you go to seminary can be cemetery, because your faith is going to just be, you're just going to be through the valley of dry bones, and you're just going to overly intellectualize your faith. That was not my experience at all. My experience was with seasoned, wise, well-trained faculty members. I got to see through their eyes who God was. All of them told the wonderful story of who God was and what he has done. And all of them, I mean, quite seriously, had moments where they didn't lead to kind of a literal doxology where we all break out in song, but they led to doxology, where you just kind of behold, this is who our God is. This is what our God has done. And that's such a gift. And it's a gift that I try to learn from in my own teaching, scholarship, research, and mentoring, to try to be very, very clear with students that this is not a heady exercise. Yes, we will learn. Yes, there are going to be difficult concepts. Yes, there are going to be grades at the end. But in the end, we are learning about who God is, what he has done, how he has spoken to his people throughout history. And what a gift that is, what a joy that is. And that ought to, and my experience was it certainly did, lead us to not only know about God, but know God more. And what a gift it is to be in incredibly close community. I mean, like such close physical proximity of people who are keenly aware of the kind of vocational journey you're on, because they're on it too, and are committed to exploring it together.